Hello, everybody. Let's talk about some true leaders to follow. Andrew Carnegie was one of the most successful industrialists of his time. But towards the end of his life, he wanted to be known for something other than being the steel baron. So with the fortune he spent his life acquiring, he funded over 2,000 libraries throughout the United States and then founded the Carnegie-Mellon University. Today's legend of Andrew Carnegie is known more for supporting reading and education than producing steel, which is an admirable pursuit of noble ambitions. Likewise, John D. Rockefeller was at one time the richest man in the world. He made his fortune through oil and gas investments, but he claimed later in life that the best investment he ever made was founding the University of Chicago. Commodore Vanderbilt was, like Carnegie and Rockefeller, one of the richest men in the world at one time. He used part of his vast fortune to create Vanderbilt University, which, like Carnegie-Mellon and the University of Chicago, remains one of the premier universities in the world today. It's interesting how many find fame and fortune through their professions, but it's rarely their professional successes that perpetuate their memory. Most would be unaware that the founder of the Nobel Prize derived his fortune from dynamite, that would be Mr. Alfred Nobel, or that his cigarette fortune created Duke University, that was Mr. Washington Duke. CNN founder Ted Turner spent his life trying to accumulate money and power, but later in his life he donated billions to the United Nations. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are donating most of their wealth, which they spent decades amassing, to a variety of social causes. Nobel, Duke, Turner, Gates, and Buffett are emblematic of a generation of people who later in life want to reassess their legacies, and they're often disappointed and disillusioned that they've attained some renown or financial freedom, yet have not made a true contribution to the world. They realize that wealth and possessions say much about how they live their lives, but less about their contributions to the welfare of others and the world in which they live. And then there's Milton and Catherine Hershey. Like many of his generation, Milton had a tough childhood. He was the only child of Henry and Fanny Hershey to survive to adulthood. Didn't get much easier as a young adult. His first few forays into business resulted in failure. But then he came upon caramel. Caramel quickly turned into chocolate. He sold the caramel business but kept the chocolate, and the rest is history. And one of the most widely recognized brands in the developed world was born. Of all the great industrialists of his time, from Henry Ford to Thomas Edison to Andrew Carnegie, few did more for their employees than Milton Hershey. Few cared more about their employees or dedicated more money to their economic and social stability and growth. Mr. Hershey wanted to build a community around his factory, and in that endeavor he built banks, golf courses, churches, hotels, houses, and a recreation center with pools and a ballroom. He even created Hershey Park, an amusement park with rides. Been there many times. Kids love that place. The building of this community continued until his death in 1945. It also had another benefit, providing jobs of the community. One of his greatest accomplishments, so he said, was that no one from Hershey was laid off during the horrors of the Great Depression. Hershey Park still exists today, creating thousands of jobs and generating millions of revenue for the area, in addition to creating hours and hours of enjoyment for family and friends, seeking solace from an awful, challenging world. Hershey's Candy, too, still exists, offering tens of thousands an opportunity to make a living, and millions in taxes generated to be used to contribute to the greater good. Those achievements were not enough, though, and Milton did not want Candy and Hershey Park to be his legacy. For he and his wife Catherine had a much grander dream. Having been raised to think that wealth should benefit others and unable to have children of their own, they wanted their fortune to benefit the children of others. They created the Hershey International School, which later became the Milton Hershey School. The objective of the school was, and remains to this day, the following. The main object in view is to train young men to useful trades and occupations so that they can earn their own livelihood. Not a bad description of somebody's life. This admirable endeavor has existed for over 100 years. To many people, Milton's legacy lay in the Hershey Company. It is, after all, the largest North American manufacturer of chocolate, with revenues in excess of $5 billion annually and over 13,000 employees. To those who know Milton Hershey, that legacy would be a disappointment, though. Milton and his wife endowed an endeavor to leave a different kind of legacy. Shortly after his wife died, he endowed the Hershey School with his entire portfolio of Hershey stock. Several years later, he He transferred the majority of his assets to the school as well. From that day forward, the school's board of trustees owned the Hershey Company, as it still does today. More than 1,500 students from kindergarten through 12th grade attend the Hershey School each year. Upon graduation, each student can earn upwards of nearly $62,000 for college. Oh, and by the way, the Hershey Foundation also runs a world-class hospital and amusement park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. What a legacy and what a life. A fortune can change the world if only it's earned by or given to the right person. Most aspire toward a legacy that reflects a purpose. Winning a baseball World Series or the governorship of a large state may bring fame, but it does not last nor provide one with the belief that they've made a difference. Unfortunately, it's only later in life that we realize a profound lesson. We are often not known for what we did to attain fame and fortune, but for what we did with the fame and fortune once it was attained. At the end of this game we call life, winning a trophy or an election does not contribute to the betterment of mankind. It's how you use those talents you were given, the abilities you developed, the passions you followed, and the trophies and awards you acquired to improve upon this world that creates that legacy of decency, kindness, and honor that is the hallmark of an admired person who pursued noble ambitions and a generous life. My best to you.